Hello and welcome to Stretford Paddock. My name is Joe and this is the Devils Podcast. I'm joined today by Jay, of course, and by Carl Anka, Manchester United reporter for The Athletic. How you doing, lads?
Yeah, I'm good.
You doing good?
Take two. We did do all this a minute ago.
We have done this once already.
Forgot to press record.
But we forgot to record, and that's part of the process, and we're happy about that. How you doing, Carl? You all right?
I'm good. I just moved to Manchester, and it's just feeling my way through everything.
Good.
It's really fun.
Yeah, good to have you. We're going to be looking a little bit about Man United transfers. We're going to be looking at the Messi story. We're going to be looking at this Soccer Saturday sackings, moving ons, and then the reaction and the fallout as a result of that. But let's get started with the transfers, and we've talked about this a little bit already in the last few minutes. I'm not going to lie to you. This is the second time doing this. But we're talking a little bit about Benoit Badiashile, and I'm not even going to preface with how I pronounce it anymore because that's just how you say it, and I'm saying it. Okay. So Benoit Badiashile, young centre back for Monaco, I believe, and I'm certain he plays for Monaco. United have reportedly had a £20 million or €25 million bid rejected for him. And we'll talk a little bit about the transfer, but as I was saying before, I want to talk a bit more about the sort of the realm within which this transfer lives, that kind of a player you've not heard of so much, like you were saying the other day, Jay, the scouting team sort of earning their money and finding gems that you can't just find on FIFA. Like, it seems like United buy a lot of players that, well, Mourinho wanted Maguire. A year later, we got Maguire. Wan-Bissaka was the standout young right back in the Premier League. We got Wan-Bissaka. Dan James was one maybe that was a bit more of a scout about. But
like, I get where you're coming from. But even Dan James, Leeds went in for $4 million. Four months later, we paid 12 up to 15 million for him. So it wasn't like we were scouting him. He was going to Leeds on transfer deadline day. Yeah. And then it fell through, and we were like, oh, hang on a minute. And then Giggs was like to Solskjaer, he's a good player, worth a punt. But I get where you were coming from. You were saying, you made the point, which is a fair one, that once United are interested in a player, their value goes up. And we're seeing that now with Benny Badiashile, as he likes to be called.
Benny.
We've gone in with 25 million for a 19-year-old, 25 million euros for a 19-year-old. And Monaco have said, I think, unless United come in with an unrefusable offer like they did with Martial offer, we're not interested. So we could end up paying, I don't know if we do go through it, 40-50 million pound for this 19-year-old, which, like Martial, could end up being worth it. But there is the sort of United tax. All I was sort of saying the other day was like, I want to see us sort of maybe looking a little bit more at these types of players, and especially in the Premier League as well. I think there's always players in the Premier League that you can sort of track from the lower parts of the Premier League. And, we've always done that, United. You look at the great United teams, we've had players that have come from sort of like, show me age, but going back to Dennis Irwin from Oldham, Paul Parker from QPR, Chris Smalling from Fulham, Valencia from Wigan. We've always sort of looked at, but we seem to stop doing that now. And it's like, it's either a foreign player, which we've not been all Brexit, I don't mind that, but it's either like big name, big massive £80 million Maguire or £50 million Wan-Bissaka, or it's someone from abroad. We don't seem to always look at the players that we used to under Fergie, and I think that's a bit of for me, we're missing out a little bit.
What do you think, Carl? Do you think that part of that is because United have to pay, like we were saying there, 40-50 million for players who maybe aren't very well known, or do you think it is just a case that the scouting department can't seem to find those sorts of players anymore?
I think it's a bit of both. I mean, when you look, apparently the system at Manchester United is obviously they've got this very bespoke analytical system, sort of like a black box full of scouting and video and whatnot, and then from that you sort of Solskjaer will go in and say, I need a player with a certain amount of attributes, and they go in their black box and go, based on these attributes, we've got these sort of people here, and then that 50-person shortlist gets down to a bit like 10 or more, and then you go off and you make bids. But at any point in time, that 50-person shortlist, that's interesting. And depending on when you're feeling people out, you consider agents are always in conversation with Manchester United, and people are aware that a player might be on that sort of shortlist. So, take Wan-Bissaka, for example. There was absolutely a need for Manchester United to have a right back, right? And they wanted a right back who was young and was defensively minded, because that was a point of weakness. And you want, if you do the Football Manager version, imagine Solskjaer walks into a room and clicks, I want a player under the age of 24 who is this height, this quick, and mostly defensively minded. There are maybe 50 players in Europe who match that criteria. And Wan-Bissaka's probably at the top of that list. But there's also loads of players, 20th, 15th, and whatnot. And at any point in time, those lower players are probably in conversation with Manchester United, and they're just going, sweet. Or not sweet, or it's like, wow, Manchester United, this is really good. And that creates buzz, and that creates hype. And I think the thing about Manchester United is they need to get a bit sneakier in the transfer market. When you look at clubs who finished above Manchester United, and you know, it's a good example is what Liverpool did with Jamal Lewis. So they wanted Jamal Lewis. I went, here you go, Norwich. Here's an idea, and Norwich went, no, and Liverpool went, okay, cool. Here's Plan B. Already got it. Done, sorted, and they like immediately went to the next person on that list. And I think what Manchester United are getting better at now, hopefully, is having Plan Bs, having Plan Cs, and you're seeing this not only in the banner signings, but you're also seeing this in like part 2. So, who scored the winning goal in the Champions League final? Who's being mentioned right now in Manchester United? That is very clearly the next person, and it's that thing of like that's a really smart Plan B to have Kingsley Coman in case Jadon Sancho doesn't come to Manchester United. Kingsley Coman's a great football player and will undoubtedly improve that, you know, Manchester United if he decides to come. But you're also in this weird state of now he's been linked to Manchester United.
Yeah.
How big are your pockets?
Yeah. Yeah, it's always going to be a problem, isn't it? And and it, like I said, the whole thing of we've got this list, and it seems as though we do seem to be heading in somewhat of a right direction under Solskjaer at least, and certainly away from. We'll talk a little about Messi as well, where this sort of big player becomes available, and all of a sudden everyone's going, we need to try and get Messi. How can we move? Like as fans, this party thinks, I would love Messi at Man United, but really, as a football team and a club, they can't be going, oh, Messi's available, throw everything out, we have to get him now, like we did with Falcao or, you know,
even
certain
Sanchez
other players.
a little bit.
Yeah, Sanchez had a similar feel to it, where it's sort of like when we just buying the best player who has popped up, regardless of, like you said, the criteria that the manager or that the club has set out specifically to target. And hopefully, obviously, Messi going to Man City, which looks like the most likely destination other than Barcelona at the moment. You do get that jealousy thing of, well, these players are available, why didn't we go after them? Well, hopefully, and again, I'm not necessarily certain you can have this kind of confidence, but hopefully that's because we have our own targets that we aren't wavering on just because someone else becomes available.
I think what you're seeing is Manchester United beginning to have a plan and beginning to have a solid plan, and it's quite hard to do that and have faith in that plan where loads of clubs are maybe 2 or 3 years into their one. So this one is year 2, green shoots. You know, last season was very much this sort of blueprint of let's get young, hungry, preferably British players, and then you're seeing what part 2 is. And we're still not quite sure about it because this is the weirdest transfer window of all time, and anyone who thinks they know what's going to happen in this transfer window has. And that's going on. But also you're seeing Liverpool maybe four years into their transfer plan, right? Manchester City are several years into their transfer plan on Pep. You're seeing Chelsea, who are basically catching up and doing 2 years worth of planning at once. You're seeing Tottenham Hotspur go, oh yeah, we didn't make any transfers for a whole year. Let's like do this all really, really quickly. And they're sort of catching up for their old plans. Whereas Manchester United are just about getting a good jog on when everyone's kind of sprinting. And it's that thing of, is it more, it's kind of annoying that we're not sprinting yet. I said we. It's kind of annoying that Manchester United aren't sprinting yet, but there is something in there just about, I think.
It's interesting as well because, you know, you talk about that, you said we're kind of getting a plan. United are kind of getting a plan. And the sort of last summer, I don't know, or last sort of spate of transfers under Wally, in the past, you've had players that have come in and only that manager can use them or rates them, or they only fit that manager's ethos. So Fellaini with Moyes, I know other managers used him, but he was very much a David Moyes signing. Then you get
a little bit of breaking news. Pogba's just tested for the Rona.
Oh, what?
For those who didn't hear that, Paul Pogba's tested positive for coronavirus, apparently, according to Sky Sports. He's withdrawn from the France squad. I'm not sure on any details of where he's got that from or any other fallout other than that's the only news at the moment.
So what does that mean then in terms of what he has to do? Is he just sort of...
Let me make sure if it means I'm still allowed to be in this room.
Yeah, we may lose Carl in a minute. He may have to go and do some quick article writing.
That's a good point. We can carry on.
Carl, let you there just fire off a few emails there. You may have to
one normal week of Manchester United.
Yeah, well considered madhouse, mate. This is it.
Will never happen.
You're in it now, mate. So going back to what we were saying there, it felt like with the signings that Ollie made, whereas in the past you felt like certain players were very much for that manager. Lukaku was very much for Jose, Fellaini very much for Moyes. Certain players were very much for Van Gaal. A lot of them didn't work out, but it doesn't matter. I mean, you want it to be under Ole, but any manager can use Maguire, can use Wan-Bissaka, Bruno. These are all players that you feel aren't very specific to a certain manager. They feel like just good players for those positions and for any style almost. Bruno could play in any system. You feel Harry Maguire could as well, and Aaron Wan-Bissaka, has been mentioned. He's just an outstanding right back that sort of fits in any mould. So it does feel like there's a bit more of a plan. Yes, a plan that backs Ollie, but also more of a long-term plan that isn't just beholden to one manager.
And hopefully that means, and not that I'm looking forward or predicting Solskjaer leaving at any time, but hopefully that means instead of, and that's what you're alluding to, but if another manager did come in, they wouldn't have to start again, tear everything up, get rid of Lukaku and Fellaini or Schweinsteiger and Darmian and Schneiderlin, those sorts of players. It's a team that, Jose Mourinho went to Tottenham and talked about how great the squad was and the team was and all that kind of thing, and he would say that because he's just started and he's happy to be in the job again. But there was a feeling that kind of club where there's been more of a sort of structure to the way they brought players in, admittedly on a budget, which is Tottenham's way, but you could go there and you could see a manager doing well straight away there. Whereas with United for such a long time, it's very much a Van Gaal team and very much a Mourinho team, and then now, like you said, hopefully there's a feeling that medium to long term, no matter who's in charge, this is a team that can do things.
This is the great task of Solskjaer's entire thing, and I think this is why he got the 3-year contract back in the day. Was basically, it's not even necessarily. Solskjaer it'd be really nice if Solskjaer could turn Manchester United into title challengers, but I think the fact he has that 3-year contract when he got given it was very much there you go, fix stuff, and if you can't, the next person can be the title challenger. And I think his thing is restoring everything, right? He has immediately come in and he was very much, this team is not fit enough. And you saw the difference in impact and how Manchester United became a more pressing side, and you're seeing the younger players come through more, and you're seeing more conversation about under 23 players, and you look at the players that travelled in the part of the Europa League adventure. He took some under 23 players with him. Like Solskjaer's entire thing is, it's not necessarily I'm going to make Manchester United the best team in England anymore, but he's just like, I'm just going to remind everyone what Manchester United is about. And I think you're seeing that in transfers and whatnot, in transfers and how they're playing on the pitch, and just like even the tiny stuff, just like have a decent medical team all again.
Why is it always that people leave Man United and found out about mystery illnesses and sprains and gastric problems that they had? People keep leaving. They're like, do you know what? At Man United, I was just eating chips and mayo every day. It turns out I'm allergic to eggs. And you're like, oh, why couldn't we find that out? So it'd be nice to be able to be, instead of, and I don't think we are the epitome of the whole. Each section has their problems and we can all laugh at Man United. I don't think we're not anywhere near the top of that list, but we're higher up on that list than I would like to be, where it's the whole, even just the sort of meme of Maguire, Leicester want 80 million, we want 60, back and forth, 2 months later it's 80. Even stuff like that, I would like for these things to be ironed out so that we can be a sort of an example of the way to do things rather than a sort of a joke of how not to do things. And it does seem as though in certain areas we have lost some of that reputation, and even amongst the media, and you see the way we're spoken about on, and again it's only the small things, but on TV and by pundits and even by ourselves, there's a feeling that certain things at least are going in the right direction now, whereas for a long time it was it's not really fun to watch us play. We've got these players that aren't particularly likeable. It seems as though Woodward and that area of the club don't necessarily have the best expertise in their field, and a couple of those things seem to at least be the mindset of fans and of other people seem to think actually some of these things are going in the right direction for once, which is nice, isn't it?
I think going in the right direction, but also you could be getting there quicker. I think that's a big. I think that's the big, when Manchester United fans sigh, I think is why isn't this happening sooner? Which is a good point. And sort of when you look at transfer businesses, everyone's going, why have no deals been done yet? Oh, we're going to wait until the 11th hour. Well, you're basically saying, do this quicker. Like a smarter club with more joined up thinking does this quicker. And probably they do. But I think this is maybe for the first summer in a while where you're like, okay, this is okay. Things are going in the right direction. Hey.
Yeah, but then we do have this thing of like I said, some things feel like they are going in the right direction, but then as Carl sort of mentioned there, why aren't things happening quick, especially transfers?
I still have slight worries, because I mean it sort of works out all right, but January transfer window was a bit of a joke in the way it was done. Because we dragged our heels with Bruno to the end of January, which we got him and that was the main thing, but even that extra 3 weeks could have made a bit of a difference. And then the Ighalo thing I thought was just farcical. I mean, in the morning it was all about Josh King. And then at 11 o'clock at night, you've got Igalo banging on the director's door saying, I want to go to Manchester United or whatever it was. Basically, because I think he's got a connection with his agent. That's not planning. That's not a strategy.
I disagree.
I
think that is planning. I think that's very much.
To go for one player in the morning, though, and then end up going for another.
That's a plan.
At the 11th hour.
That's you having a plan A and a plan B.
But he's like knocking on the director's door saying, I want to go to Manchester United or whatever. That seems a bit like, really?
And that's the thing, right?
I mean, because, all right.
This is the thing. If you're a smarter club, you get Josh King. But because Manchester United are getting better, now they're getting someone.
And we're not paying 30 million for Josh King.
Whereas like 2 or 3 seasons ago, no one turns up in January.
I get
the
like
fact
you're getting someone, but
Uncle
again,
Jude
you're leaving
really
it to the last minute and also relying on factors you can't control. Like
that's football,
yeah,
man.
I mean, really, at half-10, you're like, right, we need to try and get Odi Nagalo. I mean, how have we changed from when we did the same thing with Fabio Contral? The only difference was Real Madrid couldn't get a replacement.
I mean, when you think, no, I mean, I think that's
it's just the same. That's the same farce.
So many transfers. There are far more transfers than you think that get decided on just like the tiniest things. All right, João Moutinho was meant to go to Tottenham Hotspur in 2012, and at the last minute he went, "Can you find a place? Can you find a place to relocate my mum?" And then Spurs went, "No."
We've been the victim of that, and we've had success of that as well.
Tiny things that require transfers. That when you consider a transfer, it's not just club talking to person, talking to agent, talking to mum, talking to dad, talking to family members, talking to PR and content teams, and so many things can just be swapped on the last minute. You bear in mind what David De Gea is here because of a fax machine.
Yeah,
right. Sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't work. And the thing is, and again, like things are getting in the right direction. I very much think if it was maybe under a previous manager, Manchester United would not have got a striker in that January. But the fact that Solskjaer somehow managed to think, oh wait, Igalo, yeah, we know his agent, and also this guy absolutely loves Manchester United and might be willing to knock on the door at the 11th hour to get something through. That's good thinking. And this is me as someone who I'm still yet to be fully like, okay, I understand exactly what Ole Gunnar Solskjaer is doing, but he's doing something, and that's the first time I've said that in a Manchester United manager in a while.
I'm on board with Ole 100%. You won't get a bigger supporter of him, but I just think that yes, I get it. 11th hour, and we've seen all this with deals, and we don't get Eric Cantona if Howard Wilkinson doesn't ring up and ask about Dennis Irwin. Do you know what I mean? We don't get Andy Cole if Kevin Keegan doesn't like Keith Gillespie. I get there's these 11th hour deals that come out of nowhere, but for me, when you sort of spending all day going after Josh King, and then it just doesn't seem like a great strategy. Yes, it's one that it works, but
that's
it doesn't.
It's
doesn't.
A strategy,
You know
it's but it's not as good as it could be.
It just feels a bit like all morning we talk about Josh King, and I'm sure you were getting your phone ringing off the hook. Go Josh King, and it's like Josh King's on the way, and it's like. Oh, and then it's 10:30 and we're not getting anyone. Oh no, 11:15. Yeah. Odi Nagalo's managed to get hold of the director and we've managed to get it over the line. Yes, it got there. It just doesn't come across to me as like, this is great for
it's not the ideal way of
the most important thing you're saying, the most important word in your sentence is great strategy. I don't think is Manchester United strategy great? Probably not. Do Manchester United have a strategy? Yeah. Great.
And
that's the thing.
I get where you're coming from. Like we wanted a striker and we got one.
Yeah.
But that's there's no dispute that. Where in the past, going back to that horrible summer we had under David Moyes, where it was like we wanted a left back, we didn't get one.
Yeah.
We wanted a attacking midfielder, we got Fellaini. We wanted, another striker, we didn't get anyone. I get that there's an improvement there, but I still think there's a little bit of a way to go.
We're going 5 years on, 6 years on. There's an improvement, but also everyone else.
Well, you made the point before, like. How long, you talk about the Scousers, they're 4 years, I think you said, into their strategy or into their planning. We're sort of a few months into ours in terms of under Ole. So I get that there's going to be teething problems, we're still getting there. And, in 3 years' time, we might be looking at it going, like the Scousers are now, I don't know what keep going on about them, but they have had lots of success. This is the sort of fruits of our labour. It's just at the moment, I still think there's some way to go. As a fan, you still sort of started going... Even the Bruno thing, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, even that is like, I'm convinced, and I might be wrong, you know more than I do, but if we hadn't got beat off Burnley, does that deal get done? Because that seems to be a real, like, kick up the arse for, like, everyone is, the fans were raging, we were obviously miles away from where we needed to be as a team, and then a week later or 4 days later, we get the Bruno deal done when we couldn't get it done before. It just felt a little bit, like, reactive rather than... proactive.
It does. Yes. There seems to be a lot of that reactive rather than proactive. Like the whole, again, another sort of almost meme at this point is United lose a game the next day, United looking for a sporting director. Like, it's become a running joke of we have to be sort of kicked into action.
It's very annoying.
I know, it is very annoying.
It's very dispiriting.
But it's like, it does seem as though too many decisions are based on other problems or other actions that have to take place in order for us to have good things. What are you
This is raspberry. I'm not being a diva.
You are being a diva.
Pepsi Max Cherry, how hard is that?
He's got your Pepsi Max raspberry instead of Pepsi. You're like, what's he called? What's his name? Batman.
That's going to look getting clipped up. I'm going to look like a right diva now. But
you are a
do
bit.
You know what I mean? Pepsi Max Cherry. Sorry. Shut up for
It's
interrupting you with that.
Christian Bale over here. You're a good guy, but you're not professional.
Yeah. The camera guy.
Oh, good for you.
Just in terms of, let's get you on that, Carl, in terms of director of football, because we've spoken about this loads on the channel, spoke to different people who have different opinions of it. Do you think that makes a big difference at United? Get a director of football in?
Listen to the sound of my voice. Yes. And I have talked about a director of football ever since Mourinho was relieved of his duty. Manchester United said they were going to get one. And I think when you look at every single quote-unquote well-run club in Europe, they have a director of football. They have a sort of long-term plan of this is what we're doing in year 1, this is what we're doing in year 3, this is what we're doing in year 5. And I think when you look at, I don't like particularly doing this, but when you relate everything back to Ferguson, there was definitely a point in time where Ferguson, he had Gill, but also Ferguson himself was his own director of football. And I think United now don't have a sporting director, but Solskjaer is kind of being his own director of football in the way of, I would like this plan, this is what we're going to do, this is how I'm going to sort out the youth team, this is how I'm going to sort out this stuff, which is good and it's ambitious and it's a huge job for a football manager to do as well as coach. And he seems to be doing a okay job at it, but I would really, really, really like it if Manchester United got a sporting director, because also the longer Manchester United go without having a sporting director, also it's like one of those things in my mind where every single time, like, oh yeah, another month has gone by where Manchester United said they were going to do something and didn't do it.
Yeah.
And for me, I use it almost as a meme of just when does the director of football arrive, which is basically when did Manchester United deliver.
I forgot about that when he got sacked, and they were like, "We're going to be looking for a director of football."
Manchester
2 years
United
ago.
sacked Mourinho and said, "We're going to bring in a short-term interim manager. We're going to be looking for a long-term manager, and then we're going to be getting a director of football." They brought in Solskjaer as interim, and they just made him permanent.
Yeah,
and then
that's all they did. And then they interviewed sort of Rio Ferdinand and other people who. Again, as the stories come out, Patrice Evra, or the stories that come out around that, as has been said, numerous times, is that would be a sort of front-facing position where you're not really dictating the future of the club or how the club's going to be run, or like I said, the structure and this is the plan going forward. It would just be here's the person on Twitter that you can scream at when we don't sign Sancho, which is what it seemed. That's what it seemed to boil down to. Which is why these sorts. Because no offense, we all love Ferdinand, Evra, Fletcher. We love these players, but they have no qualifications to be doing the sort of job that we think
and
they
also,
would be doing.
Like they love the club, and even they were like,
and they're good media people, and they're good.
Do you know what I mean?
I'm sure they've got better footballing ideas than us because they've done it at the highest level, but they aren't the sort of people that you think the best possible option to do a structured job at United. That's not really what they were there to do, is it?
What we've been talking about for ages is basically what is the point of Manchester United in 2020, right? So let's really break it down. Manchester United finished third last season. They were behind Liverpool and they were behind Manchester City, two of their greatest historical rivals. And we were like, sweet, cool, we've done that.
Great, yeah.
All right, and those two clubs are gonna get better, right? And what is the point of Manchester right now? Is your plan gonna be let's just maintain third and like push off Chelsea and Spurs and Arsenal, who like we're in this massive fight with, and wait for those two clubs to start dipping a bit, or is it we're gonna chase those two? Which I don't think Manchester United figured that out. I don't think anyone's figured that out. If anyone listening to this has like a fan of American sport, in American sport they very much have this idea of championship windows. So in basketball, everyone was like, Golden State Warriors are really, really good, and they're going to be good for 5 years. We're just going to wait. and like have a plan, and then in 5 years' time, when they all get kind of old and broken, we can emerge. And then you sort of see
you saw that last couple of seasons.
And like if you're Manchester United, if you if you're really really smart and you have the director of football and whatnot, you can be like, right, Pep's not going to be here forever. Klopp might not be here forever. Wolves are going to be a thing. Spurs are in this weird state. Arsenal are going to do this thing. Well, how do we make sure when those two clubs are like doing stuff,
when they're not getting 100 points a season,
we're going to be primed to do that? And I think Solskjaer's thinking about that. And I think when he's going, I need the 18, I need the 19, and I need the better squad. That's him also going, you know, 2022 will be better. And I think Solskjaer's been really good at saying Manchester United will be title challengers in 2022. So he's definitely got this idea of 2 or 3 years down the line, they'll be really good. And also the other guys might not be as good anymore. It's just a case of, do the people above him know that? And do the people around him know how to get their ducks in a row for when 2022 happens? And I don't know.
Me and you were talking about this.
I was just going to mention that.
Off camera, we were saying, that it's not beyond the realms of possibility that in 2022 United are challenging and properly challenging. I don't just mean just in the conversation, but actually challenging. If you look at the squad we've got, and maybe the team we've got rather than the squad, likes of Mason, Greenwood, Anthony Martial, Marcus Rashford, are going to get better, I think, anyway, at least the sort of, I think that all three of them have got another level to go, especially Mason, obviously, with his age. And other players that are good for United aren't past it. There's only Nemanja Matic who's past his peak. In 2 or 3 years, Bruno Fernandes is going to be, 29? So he's not going to be, Paul Pogba, if he stays, he's going to be the same age. So there's an argument to be made that, in 2022, we could be challenging. It's just, there's a lot of ifs and buts and maybes around that, and it's, as a fan, you don't really, don't like sitting there going, maybe in 2 years' time we'll be challenging again.
What do you do to make sure that could changes into a should?
Yeah. Well, that's the thing.
Are
we doing
the obvious answers? Well, not the obvious answer, but one of those could be Jadon Sancho.
Yeah. Or just,
you know what I mean?
Or just signing the right players for the positions and having a good structure, like I said. But yeah, this thing of championship windows, like I said, is very much an American sport thing, and the reference to basketball is good.
I'm glad you did. It's good, but I would have been sat pretending I knew what you were on about.
Well, there's been this season in basketball. There's been a lot of big moves of putting pairs of players together that could sort of take their teams individually to a championship in a way that, like I said, when Golden State were just dominating, if you had Paul George and Kawhi Leonard on the same team, it wouldn't matter. They still wouldn't beat the Clippers, the Golden State. So you kind of see, here's what you can piece together at the right time, and that's kind of a you don't hear that talked about with football. But like I said, sometimes, like look at Man United with the Champions League against Barcelona in 2009 and 2011. Not that we should have not tried to win those, but it was always going to be so difficult to beat that Barcelona team that you kind of think the teams that kind of came afterwards, you saw Bayern Munich and Chelsea and a few teams fill the gap afterwards when they weren't quite as hot. Sometimes you have to plan a little bit ahead of I think we might struggle to beat this City team.
In a way, I think I'm pretty much sure Klopp said it'll take 6 years when he first arrived, or something. Or within 6 years I'll win the title. He didn't come in and say, I'm going to win the title this season or next season. He said, within 6 years, I will win the title. And the scouts have been sat there for 24 years at the time, not having won one. We're like, all right, he's being honest. 6 years isn't great, but I can sort of stomach that. And he's delivered. But he's been backed. And that's another thing, He's been backed with a long-term plan and with the right signings. And the big question that you just said is, what are the signings going to be? Is it to get us there? Because it's all well and good, Ollie's saying, 2022. But if we've just got the same team and a few signings that haven't worked out, it's going to be very difficult. And it's just, we are spoiled as United fans, and we do expect to be challenging for titles. Despite what we've had post-Fergie, we do still expect to be up there. And other than finishing 19 points behind City when we came second, it's never happened.
And like I said, with the what is the point of Manchester United? What is the direction that we are saying this is what we're going to do? And I think that's one of the things we've seen this summer with a lot of the discontent and the sort of disappointment amongst United fans has come from that thing of, we are seeing another team in Chelsea do the thing that we want our team to do. I know we finished third and they finished fourth, but we finished on the same points as Chelsea. And they've signed Ziyech and Werner and Havertz. It looks like almost, that's done. Thiago Silva and Chilwell.
Done deal as well.
5 players who will play in their first team, and United have signed no one. It's all, it's nice to see. There seems to be more of a plan, as we've said, and Solskjaer seems to have the right idea that gels with the idea United fans have of United. But when it's not being backed up, it's quite disheartening, isn't it? And you just want them to sort of go, here's Sancho, because that looked like the other problem is Sancho was dangled so close we could almost touch him. A couple of weeks ago, it felt like this is going to happen and happen soon. And now that seems to have gone away, and just it's not this sort of current specific week. Messi is now looking like he may well go to Man City as well. It's just taking another knock to the confidence a little bit as a United fan.
When I think it was Gary Cook, wasn't it? He was the City CEO, chief executive, and he was like, "We're gonna get Messi, we're gonna get Kaka, we're gonna get all." And I remember laughing, going, "This guy." I know they nearly got Kaka.
Only 15 years later than he said.
Yeah,
it,
but I thought
Messi.
that'll never happen. And now, from what Sam Lee's been doing a few bits, and for the Athletic, and he's been talking to Argentinian people saying there's a feeling in Argentina that he's open to it. And City are one of the few. City are probably the only club who can actually put together that sort of package. I mean, they're talking about. I mean, I think I'm reading this earlier today that they could offer him a deal at City and then a further deal at the New York team, so he can go there for a couple of seasons on mega money, and then have an ambassadorial role across the project or the
Imagine
organisation.
Messi having an ambassadorial role at any club other than Barcelona.
That's what I mean.
He just stroll around New York, whatever they're called, New York Man Cities.
Showing people around Bezic.
Yeah, unbelievable. Ridiculous.
This is Clayton.
Yeah, this is where you can live. But
it is mad. But, they have the sort of, it seems the noises are that they could make this deal happen, and he's up for it. And I'm very disheartened by that because it's going to be very difficult to take.
And not
Lionel Messi,
not necessarily
City.
because I think we should be trying to. I don't want us to spend £1 million a week on Lionel Messi, but the fact that this is the ambition of the clubs around us that we are trying to catch and beat, and our ambition is. We've been rejected by Monaco for a centre-back we've never heard of. Well, guess we'll have to move on then. Or we'll get our pants pulled down and we'll pay 50 million for someone. It's we seem to be in two different places when it looked a few months ago with Bruno coming in and that sort of turn in form that we were at least alongside the likes of Chelsea and even City in terms of ambition, and now we're not backing that up. It is just disheartening, isn't it? Let's talk a little bit about Soccer Saturday.
All right.
Let's talk a bit about that, because yesterday it was announced that who was it? Matt Letizia, Charlie Nicholas, and Phil Thompson were relieved of their duties on the panel. And it's not in the world of media and football and sport. There is a tendency for presenters to sort of you stick around until you have a scandal. It's kind of often the way things go. And I'm not suggesting they've had those scandals, but I'm saying it did come as somewhat of a surprise that three major parts of this very successful program were let go or sacked, or I don't think we know the full details of it. But then the reaction to it has been anything from ludicrous to just
racist.
Yeah, anything from ludicrous to racist.
I mean, little do you know that me and Carl are actually taking over from their positions. There's such been. I mean, I saw it. It's just like I saw Phil Thompson put a tweet out, and all the reactions like, "Oh, it'll probably be some diversity, or it'll be a woman, or it'll be a." Do you know what I mean? I'm like, what? Micah Richards did a tweet, and he was getting even the replies to that. Ian Wright obviously did a video as well, and because people go, "Oh, it's woke." I don't think it is woke. I think there's nothing woke about it. It's just, these are three presenters. I thought that programme, to be honest, I've not watched it for a few years. I think it got a little bit stale. I don't have a problem with ex-pros. Some people saying, you can't just have ex-pros. You need to have, like stat people or whatever. But I think I do like listening to ex-professionals because they have got insight. Mm-hmm. They know what it's like to be in those changing rooms and listen to those managers, and they can tell you things that, even the most sort of studious football fan won't know. So I like that. But I do feel with those three in particular, there's a reason they got moved on. Phil Thompson's 66. He's never played in the Premier League. Very pro scouts, very biased. They couldn't even let him commentate on them games anymore. Matt Letizia, he's had a shocking lockdown. We won't go into that. That's a different story. Yeah. But again, Charlie Nicholas, he's a meme for how bad he is at comebacks and stuff like that. He's just, and I think there's better talented people out there, regardless of the race or the gender. There's better talent there is there, and as you said, you often have chosen that they get a little bit of a revamp, and I think this needed one. Soccer Saturday, you speak to a lot of people about Soccer Saturday, and they all say the same thing. It's tired. It's a tired show. Yes, I like it, and the format's great, but it does need a little bit of a revamp. And there's younger players or younger ex-pros coming through who have retired. Micah Richards is a great example. I don't want to make it all about him, but there's players of that age who have only just retired, who are entertaining, who are insightful. Who
may have even been managed by some of the managers that are still managing,
let
alone
Micah
older
Richards
than
can
them.
talk about playing against those players and being managed. You can talk about playing against Frank Lampard and being managed by Pep or whatever. Whereas older people can't. So I think it's just become an argument that's not about what it is.
No, it's not. It's not. people have been really for their job duties, and we don't know who's going to replace them. And you consider people are spending an afternoon getting very angry about something that hasn't happened.
Hasn't even happened.
Hasn't happened yet. People are saying, "Oh, it's the war in Roke, and they're probably going to get Micah Richards in." Micah Richards hasn't been announced yet. Like no one's been announced yet.
Also, Micah Richards already works for Sky. Like what?
And
he's an employee of the same company already.
No move has been announced yet. There's been nothing like this is the person coming in. It's people inventing something to fit in with a perception of the world that is, to my view, untrue. And then getting angry about that. And it is deeply frustrating for me as a black journalist. And I sit here as, there are not particularly too many black journalists working full-time in football in the United Kingdom right now. And it's this idea of just the moment anyone is moderately successful, it is a point where it's like, oh, you're just there because of work points, or you're just there for diversity points. Like, no, you worked hard. You worked bloody hard for your job, and sometimes you have to work twice as hard to get something and to prove your point and to be actually. I spend nearly every single day in my job having to have conversations with people and go, no, I'm good at my job, but even though I'm intelligent.
Yeah.
And as you get that point where you're doing a job, and you get into a conversation with a football fan, and then you'll be talking back and forth, and you have that little moment where you're like, oh, you think I'm unintelligent,
right? Because
of my skin color. There's like a part of you deep down that believes I cannot be as smart as you because of this. And to watch that all yesterday afternoon, just people talking very, very loudly about something that hasn't happened yet, and talking about how the only way possible for someone like Alex Scott, for someone like Micah Richards, for someone like Ian Wright to get to the top is because we need to tick boxes. It hasn't happened yet, but that's the only way that's the only way black people are able to progress, is because someone wants to do work points. Like, no, what are you really trying to say, and what are you really angry at? If you're mad at that, I basically think you should go flush yourself down the toilet.
I agree. It's just, I mean, putting out statements to defend yourself for a job you've not even been offered is just bonkers.
Yeah. Why should they
people
have to be in that
feel like they
position?
have to do it? And people getting angry and I'm not before. Just watch that show and make a judgment. Like,
people are mad that they've lost football Top Gear, is what it is.
Yeah,
that's what Soccer Saturday is. It's football Top Gear. That feeling of like just middle-aged white blokes having a laugh with each other.
It's like the whole Real Britannia last night at the proms argument over it. I'm like,
that's not an argument.
Yeah, you're like, what? I don't care about
it's
that.
Not
I'm
an
never bothered
argument.
about it.
No one who's tweeting Black Lives Matter gives a damn about what they play at proms. We do care about, state-sanctioned violence against black people and lack of accountability there, right? I don't need you to put a flashy Black Lives Matter thing in the corner of Sky. I need more black executives in like executive positions at Sky, so things don't break down. I need greater care at corporations so they don't use an image of Stormzy when they're supposed to be using Lukaku. I need people in football to not just refer to every single black player in terms of pace and power, right? Like, these are much bigger issues we should be doing, and I'm sort of getting besides the point. If those people are no longer at Soccer Saturday, that show is going to change, and people don't like change. Wait and see. If it gets better, it gets better. If it doesn't, if it's not for you, you can switch off. You can vote with your wallet, and that's fine. But if you are sat there and you are truly of the opinion that I am not going to watch this television show because they've got someone younger and of a different skin color, and I think that is taking football to a place that is too far or too political, then I would ask you to ask some very serious questions about the way you approach the world, because that's like, you're just making yourself unhappy.
And no one's ever willing to admit that it is, I'm racist, so I think this.
I think
some people are.
There are a lot of people.
But there are a lot of people. There are a lot of people who would say,
imagine.
"Oh no, I'm not. I just think, why do they have to always like
throw it? Well, you have to shove it in our faces.
Yeah,
is what I
and
guess.
it's this thing of like you said, nothing has been announced. You're creating fictional scenarios that for some reason you are mad at, which I don't know why you're mad at it anyway. But it's just
nothing's been announced, and even if it does get announced, it's okay.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
it's okay.
I mean, it is good that we are seeing more diversity. It's not a bad thing anyway, if that is the case. I mean, we were talking to Darren Lewis on one of our podcasts the other week, and he name checked you actually. Yeah, we were talking about because when I used to be a reporter for years and got a press conference and literally me and the black player that put be the only non-white person in the room in the press conference, and he was talking about how he's experienced that and how it's changing for the better, and it's changing based on talent, not about diversity. You're in your position, as you mentioned, he mentioned you because you're talented and you work hard and you've got there, you've worked hard to get there. It's not about ticking a box, it's about having the people that are good enough for that position, and we live in a diverse society and that often reflects that, and it's good. It's a positive move if that's the way it goes. If they replace them with 4 talented white men, is everyone going to be up in uproar about that? It's just it's people, like you said, getting angry for the sake of getting angry. And I was amazed because when I saw it, I was sort of celebrating because I don't really like those people as pundits, not because of the race. I just can't stand Phil Thompson. That's obviously different reasons. Not because I'm anti-Scouts, which is you know what I mean. And Charlie Nicholas and Matt Letizia, I don't think they bring enough to the table. But yeah, I didn't even think about that. No. I didn't until I tweeted something and I was getting the replies saying, it's going to be woke and diverse. And I thought, really? Is that the first thing you think of?
This idea of woke being an insult is amazing. Like, you just want the world to be fairer and more equal.
How
dare you? Oh, you're a social justice warrior. Yes, I would like to live in a better world where... Yeah, that'd be cool.
Yeah, it'd be all right, wouldn't it? If you didn't
look at you. You just want more black people in jobs and opportunities. Exactly. What is the problem?
Crazy thinking.
I would like to live in a world where my 12-year-old nephew can be like, I want to have this job, and I'd be like, yeah, you can, and genuinely be like, you can have this job, instead of what happened to me when I was 22. And my dad went there, and my dad told me, he was like, there's a ceiling on my career because I have an African accent, and there's basically like a point in my dad's career where he was like, I either need to get voice lessons, or I will not get more parade because people aren't going to trust a guy with a deep African accent making presentations. And I'm, if you want to get really into it, I'm wearing glasses like this. I'm speaking in this voice. And this isn't my real voice. This is my broadcast voice and whatever. And I've got to a very nice part of my career. Also because I had to make changes to accommodate whiteness. Right? This is an incredibly hard industry to work in, an incredibly hard time to be alive. Like, we're doing this podcast just days after someone in America shot a bunch of black protesters and seemed to be securely taken in by police. And we've just watching I'm talking to you right now as the NBA and MLS has basically have boycotted, gone on strike. There's no point of us doing this right now, right? The world is changing at a very alarming rate, and I would very much like people to stop, think about what's going on, and decide where do you want to be? This is Drew Marjorie, who used to work at Deadspin, God rest Deadspin, described this as basically the second civil rights movement, right? So if you ever did your history lessons and looked at stuff like Martin Luther King and Malcolm X and went, oh my God, I don't understand how people could do that. What are you doing now? This is your great moral quandary now. We're doing this all over again. What side of history do you want to be on? Do you want to be someone who's like, oh no, actually, we need to be further in society. Oh, we should actually have a deeper look at CVs when we're doing this. We should do more blind CV testing. We should think about when we describe players using terms of pace and power. We should think about the terrible way we treat Raheem Sterling for years. Or do you want to be the guy to be like, woke? Think about it.
Yeah, 100%. Couldn't agree more with all that. Yeah, and it's hopefully we're getting moving in the right direction, but you're always going to get people pushing back.
And I think the hopefully it's always, like I said, things are moving quickly, but things will never move quickly enough to where everyone just decides, this is the right thing to do. There's always going to be pushback, and there's going to be people dragging their heels, and there's going to be people predicting things that and being annoyed at their own predictions of things based on opinions that are stupid anyway. But hopefully, like you said, things are changing in the right direction.
It's really interesting as well, a lot of the things you talk about now. You're talking about the description of black players and pace, power, strength. And I remember Paul Rancaster, who comes on his show a few years ago, he was tweeting about this, and he tweeted a few, and I think it was Gary Lineker who replied to him, and he's like, Gary Lineker, most people consider sort of on the right side of the arguments, was like, what you're talking about sort of thing, there's not an issue here, you're making an issue out of nothing. And he was saying I just think people need to have a think about the language they use with certain players, because Paul Pogba goes past the midfield and it's pace and power. De Bruyne does the same thing. Skill, balance,
silky movement.
Look at him, magician. Do you know what I mean? And it was like that, and it's now we're seeing more and more people having that conversation, which is a good thing, but it's not obviously great that we're still having to have it.
Yeah. Should we talk a little bit about Harry Maguire? Of course, there's a very interesting, I say interesting, almost movie-like quality to this sort of Greek. It's like
Greek tragedy.
Greek tragedy. There's a second trial coming for Harry Maguire. There's a sort of someone maybe has been injected with drugs, like a very sort of Taken 2 type situation going on with all of this. We saw yesterday or the day before with a statement from Manchester United talking about how we're going to take things as they come, look at this second trial as it goes, and know the people calling for him to be stripped of his captaincy, and some people even saying we need to get him out of the club. What are your thoughts on the situation with Harry Maguire? What are your the speed at which the trial was conducted and put together and then finalised? And
I have comments.
Yeah.
I will not present them at this time.
Fair enough. If
I
I speak,
big trouble.
I think credit to everyone reporting this right now. This is it's absurd. Everything that's going on, and credit to the reporters doing their due diligence and reporting facts that are, again, just like what people are being said. I think Manchester United and England with Gareth Southgate are in a very difficult position as to do that, and how both clubs navigate it is good luck to them. Southgate announcing the England squad before the verdict came out was a particularly brave decision, and I sort of think so like in the hours afterwards, the fact that Solskjaer, so Southgate announced the squad at 2, and everyone's gone, okay, you've put Maguire in there. Then it gets announced at 4, Maguire's been found guilty, and then if you're Southgate, you're going, well, that's unfortunate, isn't it? And it's that sort of, this is a very unnecessary problem that has to happen before the season arises, and I think it's going to be one of those things that's going to run and run and run.
And also the thing of Southgate coming out and saying, I've spoke to him. He sounded innocent enough to me. That was a strange thing where he sort of said, he's told me what's happened and it's not what's being portrayed in the media.
Yeah,
2 hours later,
I was surprised a little bit that he'd come out with that sort of statement, because I thought he's, like you say, he's almost backing himself, felt into a corner a little bit. I mean, he's sort of damned if you do, you're damned if you don't a little bit. Like, if he doesn't name Maguire, who's obviously a regular, people before the squad, before the announcement, people obviously know why that is. If he does, he's got to backtrack. I mean, it is a bit of a shame. I've seen it years ago. I think we had a similar thing with Alan Smith. He used to play for United, but I think this is when he was at Leeds, where he was put in a squad and he got convicted of something and he got took out of it. I know this is slightly different in the way it's happened, but I mean, like you say, I just see this rumbling on, and it's a distraction we all don't really need. As a United fan, it's like, what are we talking about signing Jadon Sancho, or what are we talking about is buying some players and not, my captain's on a suspended sentence from a Greek court because his sister may have been injected by an Albanian gangster with a drug, and I'm like, what the fuck is this? What is going on?
Like you write it down and you read it and you go, what?
It's like fiction. It's fiction. I mean, I'm not saying it is fiction, but it feels like you're reading the back of a best-selling like action novel. When a footballer's sister is injected with a drug, he must take matters into his own hands.
No, this is ridiculous. Yeah. You're not going to make that as a
footballer.
My opinion, well done to everyone who, on last Friday, this gets all announced, and they just immediately had to run out and follow what's going on. And to get those facts down and get that stuff done quickly and verify and talk to 3 or 4 people.
Yeah, from your perspective, then, as a journalist who obviously has been, watching the story and covering the story, how difficult has it been with lockdown and with, you're meant to be covering this story that's happening in another country, and there's so much information coming out about it. How hard is it to track a story that's as bizarre and as fast moving as that has been?
Oh, it's incredibly difficult. So you're on your phone, you're on your laptop, you're using WhatsApp on your laptop, and you're also, trying to, blue ticks are very important at a time like this. Like, read receipts, like, good, you've read it. I was like, the person's read it, and you're trying to do phone calls and whatnot. And yeah, just... Sorry, I moved to Manchester last Monday, right? I moved to Manchester last Monday to cover Manchester United.
Straight in the deep end.
And in the 2 weeks that have happened, Harry Maguire has been arrested, and Paul Pogba's got coronavirus. I'm just great.
And we're taking your time away from
Yeah.
covering that one. So before we go, let's do a quick Wally of the Week. Who's been your Wally of the Week, Jay?
Just anyone who's losing their marbles over some Sky presenters being replaced. Come on.
Yeah.
Life's too short, man.
I think I'll have to agree with you on that one. And also, you've still got Paul Merson. If you want, if you want a bewildered mid-50s bloke to not know what's going on, Paul Merson is still there.
People were tweeting me going, "Oh, Paul Merson," but I like Paul Merson because if you ever watch Paul Merson, in Paul Merson's head, Manchester United are the biggest club in the world. If you ever watch him how he talks, he says things like, "I can't believe he went to Man City. Why didn't he go to Man United?" Why didn't you think, yeah, I'm all about that. I'm all for that with Paul Merson, so I don't mind him.
Yeah, I'll agree with that one for Wally of the Week. Have you got Wally of the Week?
It's me for moving to Manchester United. What have I done that for?
Is that the first time anyone's had a self-declared Wally of the Week?
Yeah, we've never heard anyone. The closest we had that, I think, it's like Ant Crawler chose his brother, which was pretty funny, but no one's actually said me for moving to Manchester as well. It's not that bad, mate, honestly.
No, it's great. You'll love
We've
it.
lived here a long time. You just pick the word, like, I've lived in Manchester 40 years. I've never had a situation where my captain's been arrested in the Greece for his sister being ejected, or me, my star player's caught coronavirus. So I think you've just been a bit unfortunate there.
Yeah,
But hopefully it'll get a lot less dramatic.
Hopefully it will. Thank you very much for joining us at home. Thank you very much for joining us, Carl. People can find you at Anchorman616 on Twitter. Where else can people find you?
You can find my reading on The Athletic. I believe we still got a code going on. So if you're a new subscriber, at theathletic.com/anchor 40% off, or you can do theathletic.com/manunitedpod for a free 30-day trial.
Perfect.
Very well remembered, mate.
Thank you very much for joining us, Carl. Thank you very much for joining us, of course, Jay. Thank you very much for joining us at home. Let us know what you think to these topics in the comments below. What you think to the United's signing of maybe Badass Shield. Maybe we can't sign him because we ain't got any money anymore.
Benny
Our
B.
mate Benny, as we're calling him. Messi going to Man City, of course, and the Soccer Saturday stuff as well. And also the breaking news that Paul Pogba may have coronavirus or has coronavirus. All very interesting stuff. Let us know what you think to that in the comments below. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe to Stretford Paddock. We'll see you in a bit.